Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown,
the unofficial sumo podcast
for official sumo fans.
Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown. This is Ryan.
This is Jake.
This is Flerick.
This is Mac.
And we have a special history episode today. It's been kind of a while since we did a deep history dive, so I thought it was time for a little research project here. And in particular, I want to dedicate this one to all of the sumo wives. This one in particular because I kind of got some inspiration from the three of them, and just in general for giving us the time to do all the research and do all the recording and all that. I don't think we call them out often enough on this show.
Yeah, no, my wife sacrifices time with me because that's like the greatest gift that I can give her is time with me.
Yes.
And so for her to allow me
I think
to
we all
leave her
believe the
presence.
same thing.
Yeah.
But you're giving that gift to the three of us instead.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I was inspired to dig into this, and the format actually comes from another podcast I listened to. Somebody was like ranking their favorite 10 boxers of all time. It was around the time that like Floyd Mayweather was boxing Conor McGregor, and everyone's like, oh, he's the greatest of all time. And these guys kind of were like, I don't really think that's the case. So like, why don't we do a research episode and we'll talk about like who we think the top 10 are, as a format for working through history.
Yeah. So we had our popularity poll, which we're going to be bringing back after the upcoming Natsuba show, of like the current favorites, but we're kind of looking back into the past.
Sure. But yeah, so I really like that format. So that format's kind of what I want to use. This is a world that most people don't really know much about, and this is the classic 20th century golden age of American sumo. Like a lot of people know about boxers, a lot of people know about like even like the pro wrestling early days, the traveling carny kind of shows. Mm-hmm. Same sort of scene existed for sumo, and I feel like it's something that we should expose as many people as possible to, and I thought a top 10 kind of show would be a great way to do it. So let me give you guys a quick history lesson, just a quick rundown of who got this whole thing started. This part was kind of easy because there's one guy who did a whole lot for this kind of scene, and it was, we all know Big Bad Koji.
Oh yeah,
but like he was kind of the guy that got this scene started, got it really taking foothold here.
Yeah, the American Sumo scene in way back when, right?
Yeah, exactly. So poetically for American Sumo, this story kind of starts with the first Konishiki. Like we all know the American Konishiki, the Hawaiian who was big in the 80s and the 90s, in Ozumo. But the first Konishiki, who the American Konishiki took his name from, he was a big deal around the turn of the 20th century here. So somewhere in 1900 or so, is when the legend really kind of says that Konishiki and the rest of Ozumo came through town, and they inspired a young boy named Kimura Jiro. He was in attendance in just some small village, but he was inspired and devoted his life to the sport. It didn't turn out that way long term, but like at the time, it was like, how kids can be. It's like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and didn't really work out. He washed out of sumo real young. He didn't even really get out of Sandanme. I believe the records are spotty here, around like 1915-ish. Mm-hmm. Not just because of the age, but like also because World War I is going on at the same time.
That's
a big deal.
Thing.
But Kimura Jiro goes into politics, and for the purposes of this story, what's important is that he ends up in the United States. Still a big sumo fan. Sacramento is basically where it's believed he ended up long term, and he had a baby named Kimura Koji, aka Big Bad Koji.
Big Bad Koji.
Yep. So he was another big athlete, just like his father. He was handsome, bit of a rich kid. He's always looking to make a name for himself. Son of a diplomat and all that. He was kind of destined for great things. Was kind of the vibe. I read an autobiography of this guy very recently. It was pretty cool. But either way, Kimura Koji, he eventually goes by Big Bad Koji, but for the time being, he's just trying to make his own name. Around this time, though, we do have to touch on a dark period for our country. In the early 40s, the Kimura family was interned in an internment camp for a number of years.
Ooh.
I definitely don't want to say it was a good thing by any means, but the silver lining here that came out of it was living with other Japanese families, like full time. kind of helped Koji reconnect with the sumo roots. Like, his dad always had that idea, but Koji himself was big on American wrestling, and he kind of got that hybridization kind of helped him decide what to do with the rest of his life. And so after his internment, he goes to college for business at USC, and then after that, the wrestling bit is kind of put on hold for a little bit. He actually tried to make it in Hollywood. Didn't really go anywhere. He had some bit parts as like a strongman or like a creature or something like that in some cruddy old sci-fi
Hollywood
movies.
really wasn't so forgiving back then.
But if you ever have a copy of The Circus in Space or It Came from the Crawl Space, you can probably find Koji in the background somewhere there. I mean, we all know what he looks like. You'll probably see him.
Yeah. Big guy.
American icon.
But eventually, that taught him enough about the entertainment industry that he decided he was going to travel the Southwest and put on sumo entertainment just like for the masses. We're talking pro wrestling style. Pro wrestling had been around for a while, and obviously boxing had been around for a while. Those are like the two big inspirations that kind of coalesced here. And this is what started the first official sumo promotion, All American Sumo.
True visionary.
Koji Kimura, as he's going by this point, switching the names, Americanizing and all that, officially started it in 1951. And it was like I said, traveling carnival game / strongman challenge kind of thing in the Southwest. It kind of picked up in the late 50s, and that's where promotions start sprouting all over the place. You got all sorts of places that are starting their own copycats. Chicago's got Second City Sumo. Up in Minnesota, there was North Star Prize Fighting. There was All Star Sumo in the Southeast. King of the Tawara. I always thought that one was my favorite name.
It's catchy, definitely.
And we only know about this one from some like weird old flyers, but the Kentucky Sumo Alliance, they were a thing.
Yeah, my dad, how I kind of got into this, my dad really followed the Second City Sumo.
Yeah. They were certainly the biggest one in the region of the country we're from.
Yeah.
It wasn't really only a coastal thing. It was pretty. It was never huge, but it was pretty universally spread out through the country.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty cool.
Like you said, roots in the deep South, but definitely caught on and spread.
Yeah. So like there's a lot of Twitter researchers out there that I have gotten some inspiration from. A lot of research has been done to collect like old fight cards, old advertisements is kind of the best way to figure out what matches happened. Like a fight card flyer that gets posted in, on the bulletin board in town or whatever BS.
Yeah, I've got a poster hanging in my room where it's like the match poster between Big Bad Koji and the Southpaw Outlaw.
That's where you got that from.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was a good one. I mean, there's no way it's an original because that would be like a couple grand.
Way too expensive. Yeah.
Anyways, though, so now we're into like in the late 50s here up until like the 70s, a little bit in the 80s. This is kind of this golden age we're talking about. And I thought a good format for getting to know these people, getting to know like what happened, what stuff's worth following. Here's where we get our top 10. And so number 10, I would say drum roll, please, but that would be terrible podcasting to like hit the table and stuff here. Number 10, we got Son of a Bitch O'Brien. Yes, Son of a Bitch O'Brien came out of Boston in the 70s.
Best name in the business.
Honestly, that is a strong category. There are some good ones out here, but yeah, he came out of Boston in the 70s. His main work was with Tri-State Sumo out there in the Northeast. He actually won 4 consecutive Sumo Paloozas in the early 70s here. Sumo Palooza. I'm not going to pretend it's like some nationwide WrestleMania like Super Bowl kind of thing, but
how can you give him that much credit? The man fought dirty. The man had iron plates in his elbow tape. You can't do that when you are... No.
We're going to get to that. But I did want to say, like, he did have some legit accomplishments. Sumo Palooza was... It was the biggest individual sumo event of the year. And in 72 to 75, he won 4 of them in a row. And that was pretty cool, I thought. And yes, he did fight dirty, but he did use some of that to his advantage, like, as kind of his character, his gimmick.
The forearms, you can't do that.
Yeah, he did slap the crap out of it. Eugene Jellybean and him had a pretty solid feud for a number of years because of O'Brien's questionable slapping techniques.
Yeah, that's why they call him Son of a Bitch O'Brien.
Exactly.
It was exactly
well earned. It was well earned.
Yep. The most famous match you may have heard of was when he and Kaga Kimono did the Tawara of Fire match.
Oh. They didn't do that match very often after that one.
No, they basically had to have 3 or 4 guys spraying the things with lighter fluid and then lighting it. Start the match right now, because those things burnt out in 15 seconds.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tape of that one is pretty cool. Number 9, this one, I don't know. This one is probably not on your list here, but I got Fat Joe Beverly.
Wait, why? Why is he number 9?
I know that he's a bit of a hipster's pick here. He's kind of he's controversial, I guess, in this case because he was very boring. He was very, very good, but he was very boring. He was a leaner. He'd wear people down, and he would just like slowly yorikiri them, which he kind of developed this style because he was actually almost entirely blind his entire career. But yeah, Fat Joe Beverly, Fat Joe, I mean, it sounds like an awesome name, of course, but like this is he was one of the early guys, the 40s, the 50s. So he was like maybe 300 pounds. But for the era, that was, morbidly obese. So he was Fat Joe.
The man did nothing, though.
Yeah, I don't know. You can't argue with the results, and that's kind of where I'm coming from.
And obviously, due to his lack of eyes, I can't imagine why you got him on here. Like, the end of his career, it was like every other match, he just got hanked just because he couldn't see what was going on.
The only time he knew the match would start, the Yoji just going, Haki-oi! Like,
yeah.
No, seriously, Haki-oi, go!
And he could not. If you could keep him off the belt, you just hit him in the face until he loses track of where you are, and then you get behind him. I don't know. I do think that he's worthy of this list, mainly because I wanted to make sure I got somebody from the 40s and the 50s in here. Like he was actually doing sumo before before Big Bad Koji started All American Sumo, just nothing really official. Basically, just being a strong man at a circus kind of a thing. Going around just grabbing people out of the crowd, and if you think you're tough, come check out Fat Joe Beverly. I don't know. I really did want him on here.
Couldn't come check you out.
Yeah.
He had no idea.
Can you describe yourself in Braille? Number 8, I've got the Brazilian brawler Tiago Teixeira. Now, brawler, he sure as hell earned that name. He immigrated. Interestingly enough, he came from the future mixed martial arts stronghold of Curitiba, Brazil. And he made a pretty big impact in the American South with his striking and pushing style. He was more of an abi than like a Takakeisho. He was more of like the thrusting, trying to hurt the other guy.
Going for the neck.
Yeah. He also the other thing he's known for, controversially, he had a long ass set of dreadlocks. Very distinctive in the ring. That's that guy.
Clearly going for the hair pull there.
Yeah. He also claimed his brutal style retired over 20 wrestlers.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The dude was on drugs the entire time.
Everybody was on drugs.
But no, this guy was on like the not good drugs.
I mean, if you're referring to like the PCP rumors, I don't know.
There's a reason his finishing maneuver was the cocaine addicted dragonfly. That's all I'm saying.
But what a move it was.
Yeah,
that dreadlock got flying, man.
But yeah, like all the wrestlers that he retired, I mean, he always would claim more than 20 men. I retired with my style, or I can't remember how he phrased it, but like he would always have that like promo style. But it was kind of disputed here and there. I mean, some of those guys
saw that in his hallucinations, but
some of those guys were already declining. But just from the research I've been able to do and what I've found from associates on Twitter, like there are at least 8 confirmed accounts of people losing to Tiago Teixeira and never having a recorded match that we can find after that. So if you've seen the guy wrestle, it's not that big of a surprise that some people were like, yeah, I'm done with that.
Okay, we're good.
I could do some amazing things on those drugs too.
See amazing things too. Like, wow, that guy's not even in the ring. I've already won.
You can sure see a lot more than Fat Joe Beverly can see. Because that's the running joke for this episode. Number 7, I have Dohyo Peretti.
Why?
No, hey, you give that man the respect he deserves.
Yeah, okay, so this, before I talk up how good he was, I thought this was hilarious. One of the things that like his critics would call him, or other wrestlers talking crap about him, Doughboy Peretti. He was soft,
but he used that softness to his advantage.
Yeah, you had to be. Nobody could outbig him. You had to. Nobody could beat him without speed. Like he was massive. He was very, very difficult to move. But if you could get around to the side, you were basically in the clear. But being somebody number 7 on this list, and I think he deserves it, it was very hard to get around those big arms. He was a big boy.
I disagree. I thought he was too one-dimensional, and like Yeah, it was kind of hard to get to his side or to his back, but just he didn't have any other game besides that one. Oh, I'm just going to
besides that one
forward.
extraordinarily dominant game.
And
but it worked. It worked for him.
Yeah,
I kind of have a personal vendetta against him.
I think I know why. Is it?
Yeah, it is, because back when my parents were dating, they went to see a show of his, and my mom, she twinkle in her eye, she thought they had a connection. Like this was when my dad and her first started dating, and so they wasn't really a huge thing between them at the time, and so she went backstage to meet him, and he just completely gave her just turned
the fat shoulder.
The fat shoulder,
man.
And my mom has carried a grudge ever since and passed it down to me and my sister.
He
so,
wasn't. I mean, he certainly wasn't the best guy to be around. He's actually
knowing that you'd bring that up on the podcast.
Yeah, that's why he's at 7 and not higher. Because honestly, he was a huge deal, especially in
literally.
Literally. Especially in Second City Sumo, he was one of the big guys in Chicago, and obviously touring around the Midwest. That's how they saw him. Second City Sumo, they get a lot of flack that they had an unfair advantage due to the deep dish pizza in Chicago. But
hey, you take what you can get.
You take what you can get, and you eat all of it. The other, last thing on him, the other thing he's known for, Dohyo Peretti here, he is the estranged, but still the father of renowned sumo hawksman Scotty Karate.
Clearly setting all the great business standards for his son. Just legal enough to get around, clearly.
Scotty Karate likes to keep that under wraps. But,
Indeed.
But it's not, you can't really hide it forever.
I didn't know that connection, and we might need to rethink our business relationship with Scotty Karate.
The ASA have been after Scotty. The American Sumo Association's been after Scotty Karate for decades.
He's kind of been, whatever.
But thanks to his father, clearly still winning. Still avoiding.
Either way, that's a separate bonus episode.
The deep dive into Scotty Karate.
Number 6 here. Number 6, I got Dickie Boy Green.
Good old Dickie.
Dickie Boy Green, his claim to fame was that at the same time that he was wrestling, he was the Butler County, Iowa sheriff.
Wait, didn't he hate hippies?
He's the hippie guy. He's the hippie guy. He actually... he probably only got away with this because he was the sheriff, but there were definitely some legal disputes. He, on several occasions, and certainly he would talk about it himself, he would wrestle hippies on site.
I read an article about this.
He counted those as official wins too, right?
He did, but like on our little database that our totally private thing that we've put together from our own research. Yeah, we're not counting the hippie wrestling matches.
Do we count the ones where he brought his gun into the ring?
He really hated those guys.
He
never used it. But I mean, it was there.
He hugged those tree huggers into submission. I mean, that was his tagline on one of the articles.
He hugged them till they couldn't hug back.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, he was a big deal. His if there's one match that you wanna find with him, he actually broke Mongolia Dan Morgan's arm with a kotanage.
Yeah, that's hard to watch.
And this is right around the time that professional wrestling's getting flack from is it real, is it fake, and you can't fake your elbow.
Yeah.
He messed up Mongolia Dan Morgan pretty good. Yeah. He also has a couple wins over Tony the Rooster, Tippy Toes Turner, a lot of these rural Midwest guys. He's got wins over all of them, and I think he's the best of that bunch. And he also never won a sanctioned match by Yorikiri.
Wow.
He was a very extreme pusher / thruster. And he used mean throws like that kotanage, but never actually pushed anyone out with the belt. Okay, number 5 here. This one might get a bit confusing because there's a couple names that sound similar. But Bobby Bean, aka Bobby D. Bean, not to help people keep him straight with Robbie B. Dean. These guys were active at the same. I'm sorry, Keene, Bobby D. Keene, pusher thruster, used a lot of. I'm all over myself here. He was Bobby D. Keene was in Sumo All Stars on the East Coast for a long time.
No, that was Johnny D. Lean.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. No, we're talking Robbie Bean. Robbie Bean in the Mid-Atlantic Sumo League. He did a lot in the Carolinas. He was a grappler.
No, that was Johnny S. Teen.
I gotta get my notes in order here. Wow.
Seriously, what are you doing, man?
Anyways,
Come on, even an amateur gets those guys.
Yeah.
We can keep them straight. You should be able to.
Honestly, it's probably the pressure of putting them all together in one list. But yeah, so Robbie B. Keane was the he was a big deal in All-Star Sumo on the West Coast, not the East. Well, no, it was the East Coast.
That's Georgie D. Mean.
Get it together.
Should we just move on to
We're
going to
move on to number 4 here. Number four is a name that does not get confused with anyone. This is Cosmo Rochester.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that, like I said,
number 1 on my list.
the name game. Really? I have him all the way down to 4.
No. And I think I know why.
Yeah, why is that?
You were just impressed with his backup vocals with Spirit in the Sky, didn't you?
Oh, that's right.
Wasn't it?
The man could croon.
Yeah,
The father of sumo karaoke,
who's
right
who's
here.
the main guy for that song? What's the artist? What's his name?
I should know that.
I know, but background vocals. If you listen to interviews with Cosmo Rochester, maybe you'll be able to pick him out in the background of that one. But yeah, he was part of the crew that just happened to be around in the recording studio that day. He did put out some music on his own. It was not any good, but he was a studio junkie, so he would hang around there, and he got on. That was the most famous track he managed to sneak onto.
That was the thing about Cosmo. Like, he would put on a good show in the ring. He would dominate his
He was
opponents.
an entertainer.
But yeah, and then
clearly.
he'd put on just a fantastic show, just more than like, I'm gonna push him out. He'd throw a little extra pizzazz in there, but then afterwards you'd get a concert after his performances.
And that would clear out the bleachers faster than anything.
See, other than just the tournaments, you had the Jungyos to look forward to. Fantastic performances.
And he would do that tour every single year. Every single year in the 60s, he would tour and do matches in all 62 counties in New York. He called it the Bruiser and the 62zer. That's like the title that he gave himself. But it was dumb because who's going to wrestle you in like Albany? There's very little competition.
No, clearly.
So yes, he did win a match in all 62 counties every year in the 1960s, but like, who else was trying to do that?
I mean, there was Johnny Albany, but he was just kind of like your token.
Sammy Slaps was the other big guy in New York around this time, but like he wasn't. But who's trying to like do that? The tour specifically was. I get why you have him.
It was a stunt.
Yeah.
I'll give him that, but just the level of entertainment that he gave mid-match and post-match, that's why I got Cosmo number 1.
And he was hustling his album like after each match, too.
Yeah. And I can totally understand, like, as pro wrestling fans, a lot of the pro wrestling gimmick stuff that Cosmo Rochester used, that
it worked for him.
It totally worked.
I hesitate to even bring this up, but he tried wrestling under a stage name for a little bit as the Mawashi Kid. When he was already in his 50s.
No.
It was the dumbest thing.
Don't need to bring that up.
It was basically like there are only 2 events that we found where he did it, and he immediately went back to Cosmo Rochester and pretended it never happened.
As he rightly should have.
Yeah, he had like a Lone Ranger mask and everything. It was stupid.
Just quit bringing it up.
Let's move on. Number 3, and basically, by the way, the top 3 here are all pretty much interchangeable. So I
mean, you could throw Cosmo in there.
Yeah, whatever. My personal list, I consider these guys like 1A and 1B kind of a deal, but they're all. This is the tippy top. This is the cream of the crop. But number 3, I've got Gomez.
Ooh.
Yep, Oxnard, California's native son. He was the main attraction for Sideshow Sports for a long time. He toured forever. He actually was officially touring into the 90s, despite the market being gone. It was basically like if you wanted to see touring sumo, you went and saw Gomez at Sideshow Sports, and that was the only guy anyone has heard of. But his claim to fame in the ring was he had an inescapable Migi Yotsu grip. That's the right hand inside, and he was the Shitate Nage King. That was like his gimmick, and he would call himself that all the time because once he gets that right hand inside, you're tipping over.
And he did have some detractors, and they would use that opportunity to call him the Shit King.
But even
that was that Gus Gunderson, I think, was the guy going around calling him that.
Oh yeah, him, Gomez, and Gunderson had a huge rivalry.
Yeah, Gunderson won maybe like 2 of their matches, but like he hyped it up enough to like keep in the conversation.
Didn't he wrestle in all 50 states?
Yeah, well, he's the only guy that we can confirm did all 50 states. But that was like I said, if you travel for that long,
Who
there's
do you
no
find
market
in Alaska.
Where do you think Gunderson met him?
No. Well, yeah, Gus Gunderson, I mean, he basically was following him around the country a lot of the time. But yeah, there was let me see if I can find the rest of this Alaska card. I think Tony the Rooster was on that one too. But yeah,
Tony the Rooster made it up there.
Yeah, Sushi Belushi, Anders Anderson. Anderson and Gunderson, like those guys were like kind of partners for a while. But yeah, so
I wish they'd bring those tag team sumo wrestling matches back.
Yeah, at the very least, the gimmick that they're like, they travel everywhere, even if they're only one wrestling at a time. Like the other guy being ringside, looking intimidating, was always a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, that's Gomez. Definitely the best wrestler off of the West Coast that on my list here. Before we hit the top two, I just wanted to toss out some honorable mentions because, if we're covering top 10, yeah, we're sprinkling in some other names of other guys they faced, but like some of the guys that may not have come up in conversation here that I think really deserve a shout out and yet still didn't even make the top 10 because that's how high class, like that's how high a bar it is to clear to get on this list. We got guys like Haas Ewing and Billy Bob Sturgis. That's another
tag team match.
That's another tag team. We had the Seattle Slayer, Josh Wagner. He never, he never had a ton of competition, but he was around for a long time.
Yeah, they never could catch him, could they?
There was Damian Barbatunde.
See, I was surprised he didn't crack your top 10.
He was real close.
He was real close.
He was about as close as it gets. Yeah, he put in a ton of effort. He was very helpful to the scene. It was awesome. We got Casey Stallion, probably another Midwestern guy.
That man was gorgeous.
Yeah,
that long flowing hair.
Yeah, he earned that nickname, the Stallion. We had the Sultan from Sweden, back when racially confusing gimmicks were around in the early days.
Yeah.
But obviously I'm talking about Wada Gustav.
Oh yeah, you can't.
Don't
Wada
the Mata.
Do not. don't.
Yeah, yeah. We don't need to go into Wada the Mata. He got that reputation. Yeah,
that's why I said give that man the respect he's earned.
And of course, showing a little bit of hometown bias here. Probably not the first time. But the sit and spit king of Mankato, that's Omar Maguire.
You almost didn't make it through there.
Almost didn't make it through that. I got a lot of admiration for that guy. That's that's actually one of the only guys that I ever got to see live. I mean, obviously, like way past the time he was traveling around and stuff, but still. Okay, so now the final two. Obviously, you guys know who these two are.
Yep.
So,
you better put them in the right order.
When I say who my number two is, that's going to be obvious who that leaves as number one. And say what you will, but like I said before, these guys are 1 and 1A for me. Number two for me, Bingo Topknot.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And I gotta say, that's my Minnesota bias coming back one more time. But excuse me. So Bingo Topknot, fastest Tachi in the West. He grew up on a hog farm near Albuquerque, and which helped him, get his athletic frame. He wasn't very big, but he was very, very fast. And his claim to fame was that he killed a man in a sumo street match.
Okay, allegedly.
Yeah. There's no
conviction
because he went by Bingo Topknot. You can't really search that in the county records to see you can't search somebody's stage name if you're not positive what their real name was.
If the Mawashi don't fit, you must acquit.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have to say, he used that to his advantage, that whole mystique behind that. He clearly made total use of it.
Well, yeah, when you've totally killed a guy, nobody wants to get on the wrong side.
Allegedly. They never proved it.
But yeah, part of it was he never really denied it either. It kind of added to his his Wild West cowboy mystique. He was rivals with another guy trying to push the cowboy gimmick. He was rivals with six-shooter Bill Cooter. Those guys had a number of very high-profile matches.
I couldn't get on board with him, though.
Honestly, it was his name.
and that's really, which is a
there's
shame.
There's some good names in American Sumo, and there's some bad names.
That was just bad.
It was stupid. But yeah, so as we all know, who does that leave for number one?
Hugo Dump.
Straight from the mean streets of Garrison, Minnesota, the smallest town in the world with McDonald's.
And Hugo Dump used that McDonald's to his advantage.
Indeed.
He may be the reason that they decided to put that franchise there. But yeah, so he basically single-handedly ran the promotion of North Star prize fighting. And yeah, he mopped the streets with everybody in the entire Midwest here. He was huge. He was immovable, but he still had great agility. Kind of like we talked about Dohio Peretti was kind of the opposite gimmick or style of wrestling. But Hugo Dump, I honestly gotta say, like, look up his matches with like Zydrunas Novak or Burton Webb. Like, he had the best sumo defense I've ever seen.
He fell asleep in those matches.
That is also,
he was sleeping in
allegedly,
the ring.
And also I'm pretty sure that's one time, but it did get him a reputation for
that. That shows his instinct as a fighter. That even when he's asleep, he could still dominate his opponents.
He'd do the Tachi and then instantly just go limp. It was perfect.
Did it work?
Well, no, it worked.
And there you go.
He could not get around this.
Yeah,
guy.
so he was definitely that defense first kind of style. He'd be pretty passive, but once you start doing something, he'd do like that move that Endo likes to do these days, where he like almost does the splits and kind of like hops from one foot to the other. Like, he's impossible to tip. I don't know how he did it.
I also like the unofficial rumor that he was the inspiration for Snorlax in Pokemon.
Yeah.
I love that rumor.
I think that's kind of that's mostly a joke among American Sumo fans here, but you certainly can't prove otherwise.
No.
Oh man, but yeah, he was actually mentored by Peter Takei, second cousin of George Takei, who also was big in the early days of sumo. But yeah, so Hugo Dump, that's where we're gonna leave it. Let's run through the list one more time real quick. So at number 10, son of a bitch O'Brien.
Best name in the business.
You've said that on at least 3 different people in this episode.
I mean,
son of a bitch O'Brien at number 10. Fat Joe Beverly at number 9.
best name in the business.
The Brazilian brawler Tiago Teixeira got him at number 8. Doyo or Doughboy Peretti here at number 7.
Boo.
Dickie Boy Green at number 6.
Local
Best
boy
name in
didn't
the
like
business.
hippies.
Robbie.
Oh, God.
Yep. And then we got Robbie Keane here at number 5.
No.
I'm sorry, Bobby Bean. Bobby Bean at
Thank
number
you.
5. And no, that's whatever.
George Mean.
Number 4 is Cosmo Rochester, the bruiser in the 62er.
Beautiful voice.
Number 3, Oxnard, California's native son, Gomez, the Shitate Nage King. Number 2, we got Bingo Topknot, the fastest Tachi in the West. Just to throw it in one more time, rivals with 6-shooter Bill Cooter.
Don't bring him up again.
And potential sumo murderer. And number 1, the King and North Star prize fighting, Hugo Dump. I would love it if anybody listening to this one would send in their own list. If we didn't even get to like Waldo the Whale. I think we mentioned Kaga Kimono from that Tawara Fire match, but there's all sorts of careers that we can dive into. I think Mongolia Dan Morgan probably had the most up and down if you're talking like emotional roller coaster. Like, we all know what happened. Like,
Oh yeah,
that
nobody could stop themselves from crying.
yeah, that whole tournament, like with his wife. Yeah, absolutely. Tippy
Can't
Toes
believe
Turner.
he threw her out of the ring like that.
Well, I mean that. We joke about it, but like the real story, yeah, we obviously he's a big
Women
deal.
aren't
to the
allowed
sport.
on the dojo for other safety reasons.
But Marvin Gosworth, Sammy Slaps, Tony the Rooster, all these other guys that we didn't have time to get into today. But maybe we'll make this a series. Maybe we'll just touch on other careers.
We can go to like all the different regions, like Second City, North Star,
Tri-State,
and go talk about all the big guys in each of those.
Absolutely,
areas.
yeah. Maybe we just have to do it like chronologically and talk through a handful of tournaments that they ran, or I don't know. There's a lot of fun ways we can do it, but I wanted to get a good introduction.
Good way to start us off.
My personal top 10, and I'd love to see ideas for more stuff on these guys.
All right.
But that'll do it for today.
Perfect. So if you enjoyed this podcast, you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast listening service.
You can find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and probably some other place, Grand Sumo Breakdown.
Our blog, grandsumobreakdown.wordpress.com.
If you have any questions, comments, or corrections, drop us a line at grandsumobreakdown@gmail.com. Give us a call at 805-613-7866. That's 805-613-SUMO.
And if you're still listening to this one, April Fools for 3 years in a row, bitches. Yeah! Yeah, got them.
And we remembered to say it was an April Fool's at some point in the episode.
This is April Fool's.
So if anybody gets at us, it's because they didn't listen.
Exactly.
Got him. Thank you for listening to Grand Sumo Breakdown.
Until next time.
Throw your salt high.
And keep moving forward.